390,000 kids are blindly marching into a 1% statistical bloodbath every single year, fully convinced they are about to become the next Wolf of Wall Street. They are taking on 6 figures of insurmountable student debt just to strut around Midtown Manhattan in a Patagonia vest, completely faking their way through a corporate culture rigged by pure nepotism. But while they're desperately fighting for scraps and bragging about 100-hour work weeks, the actual Wall Street elite are quietly, systematically replacing their entire job with enterprise AI. If the $150,000 entry-level analyst pipeline is being permanently handed over to a software algorithm, what exactly happens to the generation of arrogant students holding worthless business degrees? Look, if you paid any attention to macroeconomic trends over the last decade, you watched the entire tech sector dive headfirst into the economic meat grinder. For nearly 10 years, a toxic cultural narrative sold an entire generation of naive kids on a total pipe dream. The sales pitch went something like this. Drop everything, sign up for a 6-week hyper-condensed coding bootcamp, and bam! Instant guaranteed 6-figure salary, working 30 minutes a day in a remote utopia while sipping oat milk lattes in Lake Tahoe. Yeah, if you had an ounce of basic analytical foresight, you saw the catastrophic writing on the wall years before the bubble popped. I managed to dodge that college disaster simply by paying attention to the most foundational law in economics: supply and demand. The market was getting choked with millions of junior developers who barely understood basic front-end frameworks and possessed zero comprehension of computer science architecture. They were building toy React apps while completely blind to how systems actually scale. Then what happened? The zero interest rate policy came to a screeching halt, and the cost of capital skyrocketed, cheap money vanished overnight, and reality asserted itself with ruthless efficiency. Over 300,000 technology workers were tossed onto the street in a matter of months. Entire divisions of bloated middle management product owners and junior front-end coders were unceremoniously purged from corporate payrolls across the sector. Those worthless online bootcamp certificates, once marketed as golden tickets to the upper middle class, well, yeah, they turned into digital trash in a labor market drowning in a surplus of human capital. What did the herd do next? Did they learn a single, solitary lesson about economic fundamentals? Of course not. Panicked by the collapse of big tech and paralyzed by the terror of downward mobility, the student masses executed a frantic, synchronized pivot. They blindly stampeded towards what they perceived to be the last surviving temple of guaranteed wealth: high finance. According to data from the National Center for Educational Services, business and finance degrees now count for nearly 20% of every single undergraduate degree handed out in the United States. That means over 390,000 newly minted business and finance graduates are dumped into the American labor market every single year. Yeah, they're all chasing the same pot of gold, all 390,000 of them. Now, to truly understand the sheer stupidity of this mass migration, you have to look at the delusional psychological machinery driving it. Do you honestly think these 19-year-old undergraduates are grinding through macroeconomic textbooks because they have a burning passion for the mechanics of debt capital markets or global liquidity cycles? Fuck no. Their entire career trajectory is based on watching The Wolf of Wall Street 5 times in their freshman dorm room. They are literally using a cinematic depiction of 1990s penny stock boiler room fraud, securities manipulation, and rampant federal crimes as their step-by-step vocational playbook for the 2020s. You can't make this shit up. They genuinely believe that walking into Wall Street means shouting into a telephone, blowing bags of cash, and closing multi-million-dollar deals before lunch. They're completely and utterly oblivious to the realities that contemporary finance is a soul-crushing panopticon run by algorithmic compliance software, endless regulatory filings, rigid corporate bureaucracies, and a suffocating post-2008 oversight. Yet the myth thrives. It gets blasted across TikTok every single day. Endless 15-second clips of luxury Swiss watches, rented sports cars, and tailored suits set to funk music. It is a fabricated fantasy completely detached from the 100-hour work weeks of mind-numbing spreadsheet formatting required to even touch that world. Because these kids possess virtually zero authentic financial acumen. They do what every desperate, insecure group does when they realize they're out of their depth. They adopt the aesthetic of the insider to hide the fact that they are total frauds. You know the uniform. You see this corporate camouflage pacing the sidewalks of Midtown Manhattan, Canary Wharf, and downtown Chicago. The navy blue Patagonia fleece vest, the ultra-tailored, wrinkle-free khaki chinos, the crisp light blue Oxford button-down, and the mandatory horse-bit leather loafers, or deal sleds. It's a carbon copy costume designed to entirely mask a profound deficit of hard technical skills. The subconscious logic is painfully transparent. If I dress like a private equity managing director at a Aspen retreat, maybe no one on the desk will notice that I can't build a discount cash flow model to save my life, or that I don't know the difference between a high yield bond and a toxic debt asset. It is an entire subculture sustained by sheer arrogance, social mimicry, and a desperate hope that the market won't expose them. But the market always exposes the tourists. Now, let's talk about the Silver Spoon legacy candidate, the trust fund kid whose family has belonged to the same country club for the last 3 generations. For this guy, the concept of the hustle or the grind does not exist. While some middle-class kid at a state school is having a panic attack, sending 4,000 cold emails, desperately trying to get strangers on LinkedIn to hop on a 15-minute networking call, and grinding through 400-page interview guides until their eyes bleed, the legacy candidate's recruitment process is completely frictionless. So then, how does he break in? Well, he mentions his graduation date to his uncle, who happens to be a senior managing director at Goldman Sachs, over gin and tonic at the golf club. Boom! Done! His resume completely bypassed the automated tracking systems that instantly reject hundreds of thousands of qualified applicants. His summer internship isn't spent sweating through panic attacks over broken Excel formulas at 3 a.m., it's spent having 2-hour lunches with the senior partners, getting taken to corporate box seats, and building organic relationships. Then, to add insult to injury, this guy looks at his stressed out, non-target peers with genuine confusion and says, "Bro, why are you stressing so much? Just reach out and network. It's not that hard, bro." Yeah, he is fundamentally incapable of understanding that the game was rigged in his favor before he was even born. If you're enjoying the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you're a big fan of the channel, consider hitting join to become a member. It provides the stability I need to keep making these videos well into the future. Now look at what happens when you remove nepotism and examine the raw mathematical bloodbath of the standard application pool. The numbers are terrifying. Historically, a top-tier investment bank like Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan pulls over 100,000 applicants for a measly 1,500 summer analyst seats. Do the math on that. That is an acceptance rate of roughly 1.5%. That means it is statistically harder to get an entry-level analyst job at a tier 1 investment bank than it is to get into Harvard. And thanks to the hundreds of thousands of panicked refugees fleeing the collapse of the tech market, that acceptance rate has plunged closer down to 1%. If you think you're just gonna waltz in with a generic business degree and a 3.8 GPA from a regional college, you're living in a complete fucking fantasy land. Wall Street does not care about finding hidden gems or giving the scrappy underdog a chance. They're processing an ocean of human resumes, and they run on brutal, cold-blooded corporate efficiency. They recruit from a tight, ultra-exclusive pipeline of about 15 to 20 target schools. The Ivy League, Wharton, NYU Stern, Stanford, and maybe a tiny handful of elite private institutions. If your resume does not boast one of those elite institutional stamps at the top, you know where your resume goes. It goes directly into the fucking trash. And ask yourself this: why would a hiring committee waste 30 seconds reviewing an applicant from a mid-tier regional state school when they have a stack of 5,000 resumes from Wharton and Harvard? They wouldn't, and they don't give a fuck about you. The idea that Wall Street is a meritocracy where anyone who works hard can make it to the top is believing an absolute undeniable myth. And this brings us to the real tragedy, the crushing economic trap waiting for the overwhelming majority of those 390,000 annual graduates, who desperately believe in the marketing lie that a business degree is an automatic ticket to $150,000 as their starting salary. Well, guess what? In order to get there, you're going to have to take out astronomical loans. And yeah, some of these guys are carrying out $100,000, $120,000, and even $150,000 in non-dischargeable student debt. Because these aren't the glamorous jobs from the movies. These are the risk compliance and trade reconciliation roles where the median salary starts at maybe $65,000 a year. And let's do the math here, because you're living off of $65,000 in New York, Chicago, or London. And after federal, state, and city taxes, your take-home pay is practically cut in half. Now try paying $2,500 a month in rent, paying for basic groceries, and servicing a $120,000 student loan balance with a 7% interest rate. Guess what? You aren't driving a Porsche, you aren't popping champagne in Midtown, you are living paycheck to paycheck in absolute financial precarity, drowning in debt, and stuck in a fluorescent cubicle pushing compliance paperwork. Now, there's always been an open secret within the financial sector. The first 2 years of an undergraduate finance degree are essentially a complete joke. Think about what they actually teach you. How to format a polite email, how to navigate basic cell formulas in Excel, and how to line up text boxes and logos in PowerPoint. The industry has always justified this by saying, don't worry, the real high-level financial engineering and valuation mastery happens on the desk once you start your job. Well, let's pull back the curtain on what entry-level work looks like. It's not high-stakes corporate negotiation. It's not deciding whether to execute a $10 billion leveraged buyout. An entry-level analyst position is a brutal, sleep-deprived, 100-hour-a-week slog of absolute clerical misery. Your entire existence revolves around sitting in a dark office at 2:30 a.m., manually copying data from quarterly 10K filings into a spreadsheet, updating historical valuation multiples, and aligning bullet points and corporate logos on a 60-page pitch deck that the managing director might not even read. And yeah, the job is fundamentally just high-stakes data entry and visual document formatting. And guess what? It is an absolute prime target for large language models and enterprise generative AI. You might be rolling your eyes, but think about the economics from the bank's perspective. An AI does not demand a $150,000 base salary plus bonuses. An AI does not get burnt out, depressed, or complain to human resources about working a 100-hour work week. An AI does not make clerical typos because it's running on 2 hours of sleep and 4 Red Bulls. This is not some distant sci-fi theory. It is happening right now. I do like to talk about how AI is completely useless on this channel a lot, but for entry-level jobs, it does a pretty good damn job, because Goldman Sachs published a macroeconomic report stating that generative AI can automate up to 35% of all tasks across business and financial operations. That means tasks that used to require a literal army of terrified 22-year-old analysts and interns sitting silently on Zoom calls taking manual notes are now executed automatically in fractions of a second. When a machine can ingest the company's financial history, extract the EBITDA metrics, calculate valuation multiples, and generate a flawlessly formatted investment memorandum with zero human error, the entire economic justification for hiring massive analyst classes instantly vanishes. And if you think this destruction of white-collar labor is just an accident of technological progress, wait until you see how the tech oligarchs are burning hundreds of billions of dollars to guarantee it. Which is exactly why you need to watch this breakdown of Mark Zuckerberg's midlife crisis, to see how Meta's reckless $145 billion hardware spending spree, an unhinged open-source scorched earth war strategy, and a looming dark GPU crash are permanently breaking the fundamental rules of modern capitalism. Or you can get the fuck out of here. Thank you guys for watching.